What is really going on with the meat supply? And is there some sinister agenda at play here? Stay tuned. October 2021 saw the largest increase in meat prices since 30 years. You would think that these price increases were essential so that meat companies can maintain their profit margin. But that's not the case. Companies like Tyson's Food are taking advantage of the situation and seeing massive increases in their profit margins. Meanwhile, the American public are expected to believe that this is all because of a labor shortage and an increase in labor cost. While the media continues to barely give lip service to just the tip of the iceberg regarding this problem, they never quite hit the nail on the head. So let's dive a little deeper into the problem. Let's figure it out on our own. We know that California is the largest agricultural production center in the United States. Most of our fruits, vegetables, milk, and wine come from California. But now California is experiencing a drought, such a severe drought that it has been declared an emergency. But this has never really been a serious issue for California in the past, right? They do have the infrastructure to handle this kind of situation. And while articles have definitely been written concerning this issue, for some reason you'll find that information regarding this topic has been retracted. It seems as though they're doing everything in their power to assist the public in forgetting the fact that the California State Water Board was responsible for draining the reservoirs, which in the middle of 2019 were at full capacity. This was most definitely intentional sabotage of the United States agricultural system by elected officials. And as an option of last resort, the farmers are now forced to rely on the aquifers, which are now being blockaded by the state of California. But instead of calling it what it is, these Marxists continue to play word games and refer to it as a quote unquote rationing system instead of what it really is, a blockade. There is obviously a well coordinated effort here to sabotage the meat supply, but where do these people get their marching orders? And who do they answer to, if not the American public? Enter the World Economic Forum. These modern day version of Greenpeace environmental terrorists want you to eat much less meat. Oh, but don't you worry. Your unelected overlords are full of grace. They will occasionally allow you to have meat as a treat, as if they somehow have say regarding what goes on to your dinner plate, as if you are their lapdog, begging them for a handout, begging them for a treat. Their non-stop fear-mongering is relentless, no doubt being responsible for causing weak minds to become unstable, indoctrinating the masses to adopt a radical worldview that leads to extremism, leading these people to believe that somehow our meat consumption is unstable for the environment, trying to convince the non believers that we should never eat red meat again. How far are these environmental terrorists willing to go to punish the non believers and realize their agenda? Are they willing to poison our meat supply to carry out their agenda and punish those of us who disregard their nonsense? Why is there such a drastic increase in the spread of prion disease in North America? And why is this such a baffling mystery to the professionals? Let's see what we can find. But first, let's talk about what is a prion and what does it do. Prions are a group of proteins that fold in an abnormal form. They cause lethal neurodegenerative diseases in humans and animals. It can be classified as a degenerative disease. Now, let's get back to the first question. Are they willing to poison our meat supply to carry out their agenda? If not, then it is extremely coincidental that so many farm animals all of a sudden have been getting sick lately. Millions of chickens have been struck with a deadly form of bird flu. And Poland seems to be taking the brunt of the hit. Farmers all across Europe and Asia are being forced to cull their flocks. And at the same time, the pigs are experiencing an outbreak of swine fever all across the world. The following images may be disturbing to some audience members. Viewer discretion is advised. This African swine fever is destroying the internal organs of the pigs, forcing farmers all over the world to eradicate their swine. But what about the wild game? What about the deer? Chronic wasting disease is spreading so fast across North America that it's pretty hard to keep track of all the stories as they come out. It's so common now that you've probably already seen a deer affected by it. It's a degenerative prion disease that affects deer, elk, reindeer, sika deer, and moose. And it has been spreading throughout North America at a rapid pace. Now let's take a look at Asia and the degenerative disease affecting their bison called lumpy skin disease, which in the last few years has spread rapidly. The following images may be disturbing to some audience members. Viewer discretion is advised. Here we see the effects of the lumpy skin disease on the bison. As you can see, its skin is deteriorating in a much similar manner to those who were affected by Agent Orange. Obviously, the correlation does not equal causation here, but it definitely warrants further investigation. So let's take a look. The main ingredient in Agent Orange is a chemical called dioxin. Dioxins are mainly byproducts of industrial practices. They are produced through a variety of incineration processes. Strict regulatory controls on major industrial sources of dioxin have reduced emissions into the air by 90% compared to the levels in 1987. But what happens to all of the dioxin after they filter it out? We know that In the past and in the present, it has been used as a chemical weapon with detrimental effects to those who are contaminated and even their progeny. So, what effects would this have on our meat supply if, say, an environmental terrorist organization decided to poison our animals with it? From what we know, dioxins induce a broad spectrum of biological responses, including induction of cytochrome P451A1, disruption of normal hormone signaling pathways, reproductive and developmental defects, immunotoxicity, liver damage, wasting syndrome, and cancer. And it brings about a wide variety of toxic and biochemical effects via AHR mediated signaling pathways. Keep that in mind. So, needless to say, the wide scale contamination of our meat supply with dioxin might actually look something like this. And we know that the wide scale contamination of meat supply with dioxin has, in fact, occurred in the past. But obviously, this is far from conclusive evidence, so let's take another step further. We know that dioxin's interaction with AHR mediated signaling pathways are responsible for a wide variety of toxic and biochemical effects. And prions are caused by the misfolding of proteins. So, is there a link here? Because, as they say, the exact molecular mechanism which leads to the misfolding is still unknown. We know that AHR receptors control various biological pathways by forming heterodimeric transcriptional regulator complexes with several other proteins via the beta sheet surfaces. And these beta sheet surfaces are involved in many intermolecular interactions with other proteins. So this question must be answered. Are dioxins responsible for causing prion degenerative diseases? And if they are, then how are these dioxins being spread throughout our environment on such a massive scale? We know that dioxins are a very prevalent industrial waste that needs to be disposed of. And the two most promising methods to dispose of it are with UV and ozone treatment. So, how can we go about destroying dioxins with ozone and UV radiation? It doesn't exactly take a rocket scientist to figure out that it would be extremely cost effective to, say, dump several tons of dioxin into the ozone layer to get rid of it. You would have the double effect of destroying the dioxin with ozone and UV radiation at the same time. But at what cost to human society would this toll require? This would decrease the amount of ozone in our atmosphere and increase our exposure to UVB radiation, which could ultimately lead to an increase in skin cancer and cataracts. Is it still just a coincidence then that in the last 20 years we've seen a massive increase in the amount of cataracts and skin cancer cases? No, I'd say it's quite a bit more than just a coincidence. And what would it look like if some of the dioxin wasn't destroyed in the ozone layer and let's say it made its way back to Earth? It probably looks something like this. But what can we do to fight back and defend ourselves against this indiscriminate assault on humanity? First and foremost, I would say share this information, download it, repost it to your own channel, share it with scientists, share it with legislators, AGs, and sheriffs, and anyone who's willing to listen, and pilots who may unknowingly be taking part in crimes against humanity. As far as the potential remedies to dioxin exposure, I have to start off by saying that I am not a medical professional. However, there has been significant amount of research regarding the use of xanthohumol to reduce the effects of dioxin. It might also be a good idea to wear long sleeve shirts, a pair of sunglasses, and prepare your food with ozonated water. But whatever you do, don't forget, as always, help out your neighbors.